again. Alright, we're going to finish this up now. This is chapter 19 and chapter 20, the final two chapters of WristClocks. Time is not yours to keep. At the end, I will tell you something a little special, but you have to keep listening. We're almost there. Not done yet, though. Chapter 19, the quiet between seconds. The case is cracking open, but something else is slipping through. The news didn't stop. Ella's name was everywhere, flashing across televisions, echoed through radio interviews, plastered into cheap headlines and TikTok theories. They called her the copy clock, the bloody hourglass, and even little gears. Mason hated it. Ellis was neither the clock nor a monster. She was a woman twisted too close to something she didn't understand. The station buzzed. Detectives filing reports. Press agents demanded clear statements. Vega sat in a borrowed office chair, flipping his pen between his fingers, trying to drown it all out. Mason stood with her arms crossed, watching through the glass. She hadn't slept. The adrenaline had faded. Now it was just exhaustion and something heavier. She didn't try to beat him, Mason said finally. Not copy him. That's why she changed the times. Mason didn't respond. She watched him to see and wanted him to see her as more than a follower. Now he looked at her, and he didn't. Mason shook her head. He saw her as rust. Tick, tock. Somewhere else in the city, on the other side of the steel and routine, a man watched the news without sound. His name was Michael Rowe, and he worked as a logistics analyst for a private shipping firm. Lived alone, quiet, no record of violence, no drugs, a model citizen, if the mold needed one. But Michael had always felt time differently. He had read about the murders online months ago, the clocks, the times that didn't match the second hand. He saw the message before the media did, before the police, and now it was all wrong. They misunderstood. They made her the story, but Ellis had just been another broken gear. She had shaken the balance, if he had to be honest. Michael was glad she was gone. She wasn't precise. She was loud, crude. Her carvings were rushed. She made people look instead of understand. But the original clockmaker, he understood time. He knew when time had run out and when it merely had skipped. Michael adjusted his wristwatch. He never wore it on his left hand. Tick, tick. Mason sat in the silence of her car later that evening, flipping through old files, names, times, crime scene photos. One thing bothered her still. 3 early victims, before they knew there was a pattern, shared something strange. Different cities, different dates, but their deaths had carvings that looked more disciplined. The same depth, the same pattern, almost like original work. And something clicked. The first known case was not the first. There had been an earlier death, one that got labeled as a suicide. A warehouse janitor in the Northern District. The watch etched into his wrist had been thought to be a bizarre self-harm incident. The detail in the carving. She tapped her pen against the photo. Not a suicide. A prototype. Tick, tick. In the quiet apartment, Michael Rowe turned the page of his notebook. He had begun drafting his own precision. He didn't rush. He wouldn't make Elois's mistake. Time, after all, was not something you took. It was something you corrected. Chapter 20. Where the Law Begins. The original clockmaker is still out there, watching, measuring, preparing. It began with silence. No new victims. No clocks carved in skin. No second-hand twitching into sight. The press took it as a victory. The city needed a story with an ending, and they chose one. Detective Mason Cole didn't believe it. Vega, for once, agreed. They kept going back to the files, back to the first carvings. Eric Poland, Joyce Vaughn, the ones who died so cleanly. It had fooled everyone. They looked for more anomalies. They found them. Quiet cases scattered through years apart. Always the same craftsmanship, the same immaculate control. He had been working long before Ellis, and now he'd gone silent again. Tick, tick. He knew what silence meant. It was the resetting of gears, the pause before the pendulum swung again. Ellis' removal had bought him the time, not much, but enough to begin refining the doctrine, the law of precision. She had broken it. Her hands had slipped. Her lines were not clean. Her time had not been earned. It had been imitated, and imitation rusts quickly. He had seen it before. Young followers, too quick to impress, too desperate to bleed. But this new man, Michael, was different. Older, methodical, patient. A man who understood that death is not a punishment, it is a correction. Tick, tick. In an anonymous post on a private forum under a pseudonym, Michael had asked a single question. Do the hands always point to the same hour in every cycle, or does the cycle shift? It was a test, a single line of insight into the philosophy behind the carvings. And the clockmaker had responded, not with an answer, but with a mark. He left a page torn from a watchmaker's manual on a bench, an old subway station, annotated, highlighted, just enough to say, I saw your question. Michael would understand. No names, no contact, not yet. The law of precision would grow, but slowly, like a patient disease. The first generation of followers had proven fragile. This one would be engineered. Tick, tick. Mason stared at her wall, cluttered with photos, scribbled notes. Ellis had only ever a cracked reflection. The real killer, he was still writing a story. But stories leave shadows, and she had seen his. Okay. That is the end of WristClocks. Time is not yours to keep. There is a second book though, and I will be reading that one aloud as well. That is WristClocks, the Law of Precision.